March 17, 1943. Hickam Field, Hawaii. Quartered Milushinu 0547 hours. The ground crew thinks Captain James R. Sullivan has lost his mind. They're standing on the tarmac watching a team of engineers disassemble a 4-ton Caterpillar D4 bulldozer with cutting torches and wrenches, breaking it down into sections small enough to fit through the bomb bay doors of a B-17 Flying Fortress. The bomber, tail number 41 to 9234, sits there like a patient on an operating table, her silver skin glinting in the pre-dawn light. Men are measuring, calculating, arguing about weight distribution and center of gravity. One mechanic shakes his head. You can't fly a fortress with a bulldozer in her guts. Sullivan doesn't respond. He's already done the math. Stripped of guns, ammunition, armor plating, and everything else non-essential, the B-17 can carry the load. Barely. The bulldozer's blade sits on a pallet. The engine block, still warm from its last shift clearing coral, is being hoisted by crane. Hydraulic lines coil like intestines. Every bolt, every gear, every piece of the machine is being cataloged, numbered, tagged, because 2,400 miles away, on a speck of coral called Funafuti atoll, American forces are trying to build an airstrip with hand tools in desperation. No ships can get through. Japanese submarines patrol the shipping lanes like wolves. The atoll's garrison, 450 Marines and Seabees, are digging with shovels, moving coral one wheelbarrow at a time. At this rate, the airstrip won't be operational for 8 months, maybe longer. And without that airstrip, the island is defenseless. A target, a sacrifice waiting to happen. So someone in the Pacific Command had an idea that sounded insane. What if you could fly a bulldozer there? The B-17 wasn't designed for cargo. She was designed to drop bombs on Germany, to fight her way through flak and fighters to bring her crew home. But the Pacific theater doesn't play by European rules. Out here, the enemy isn't just Japanese Zeros. It's distance. It's isolation. It's the tyranny of water stretching in every direction. Thousands of miles of ocean, where a mechanical failure means death. Where there are no emergency airstrips, no rescue planes, no second chances. Sullivan watches as the final piece, the bulldozer's seat, is loaded into the fuselage. The B-17 squats lower on her landing gear, heavy, pregnant with steel. A colonel walks over. He's holding a clipboard. His face says he's here to stop this. Captain, I need you to understand what you're proposing. Control. His voice is tight. You'll be flying an overweight aircraft across open ocean with no defensive armament, no navigator, no bombardier. If you encounter enemy fighters, you won't be able to outrun them or fight them. If you lose an engine, you won't have the power to maintain altitude. And when you reach Funafuti, you're going to attempt a belly landing on an unfinished coral strip with a bulldozer in your bomb bay. Sullivan looks at him. Yes, sir. You understand this is a one-way mission. The aircraft will be destroyed on landing. The island needs the dozer more than the Air Force needs one bomber, sir. The colonel stares at him for a long moment. Then he signs the clipboard. God help you. By 0800 hours, the B-17 is fueled. The crew, just Sullivan and his co-pilot, Lieutenant Thomas McKinley, run through pre-flight checks. 4 Wright R-1820 Cyclone engines cough to life, their propellers biting into the Hawaiian air. The control tower clears them for takeoff. As the overloaded fortress lumbers down the runway, struggling to rotate, barely clawing into the sky, the ground crew watches in silence. Some of them are already writing it off as a loss. But 6 hours into the flight, as Sullivan levels off at 8,000 feet and settles into the rhythm of instrument flying over endless blue nothing, he allows himself one thought. This might actually work. That's when McKinley spots the shapes on the horizon. 4 silhouettes. Low, fast, closing, Japanese Zeros. March 17, 1943. 1,200 miles southwest of Hawaii. 1,423 hours. McKinley's voice cracks over the intercom. Fighters, 2 o'clock low. 4 of them. Sullivan's hands tighten on the yoke. The B-17 is flying at 8,000 feet. Too low, but the extra weight makes higher altitude impossible. She's burning fuel faster than calculated. Every gallon used means a few pounds lighter, but they're still heavy, sluggish. A wounded animal limping across the savannah. And now the predators have found them. The Zeros are climbing. Their silhouettes grow larger through the cockpit glass. You can see the distinctive profile now. The long nose, the fixed landing gear of the A6M2 model. The meatball insignia vivid even at distance. They're from a carrier group. Has to be. No land bases out here, which means there's a Japanese task force somewhere below the clouds. Sullivan keys the radio. Nothing. They're too far from any allied frequency. Too far from anyone who could help. McKinley is already doing the math. We've got no waist guns, no tail gun, no ball turret. We're naked. I know. They're going to come in from behind. Standard attack pattern. We can't outrun them. Can't outclimb them. I know. The lead Zero peels off, beginning its approach run. The others follow in textbook formation, spacing themselves for sequential attacks. They've done this before, probably dozens of times. They know exactly how long it takes to shred a B-17's tail section, how to walk their fire from engines to cockpit, how to kill a bomber that can't shoot back. Sullivan pushes the throttles forward. All 4 engines roar in protest. The airspeed indicator climbs 160 knots, 170, 175. The B-17 shudders. Metal groans. The Bulldozer in the bomb bay shifts slightly, and the entire aircraft lurches to port before Sullivan corrects. "What are you doing?" McKinley's voice is almost a shout. "Buying time." The first Zero opens fire at 400 yards. You can see the muzzle flashes from its twin 7.7mm machine guns, the slower pulse of its 20mm cannons. Tracers arc through the air, beautiful and terrible, stitching a line toward the bomber's tail. Sullivan throws the B-17 into a dive. It's not a maneuver. It's barely controlled falling. The fortress drops like a stone, the altimeter unwinding, 7,500 feet, 7,000, 6,500. The Zero overshoots, pulling up sharply to avoid collision. Sullivan hauls back on the yoke at 5,800 feet, and the bomber levels out with a violence that makes every rivet scream. The Bulldozer slams against its restraining straps. You can hear it, a metallic crash that echoes through the fuselage. One of the securing chains snaps. The cargo shifts another 6 inches to port. Now the B-17 is flying crooked, asymmetrical. Sullivan has to hold constant right rudder just to maintain heading. The Zeros regroup. They're more cautious now, circling, assessing. One of them comes in from the beam, a side attack where the bomber's missing waist guns would normally cover. 20mm shells punch through the aluminum skin. A line of holes appears in the wing, daylight visible through the metal. Fuel mist streams from a punctured tank. McKinley is praying. Not words, just sounds. A desperate rhythm. The second Zero attacks from high 6 o'clock. More holes. The right horizontal stabilizer takes a burst. Fragments of metal peel away like shrapnel. The control cables shudder under Sullivan's feet. They're being taken apart. Methodically. Professionally. Sullivan looks at the fuel gauges, at the manifold pressure, at the oil temperature climbing into the red on engine number 3. He does the calculation. Funafuti is still 900 miles away. At this rate, they won't make it. Even if the Zeros break off right now, the damage is too much. They're going to die out here in the middle of nowhere with a bulldozer in their belly and no one to remember them. "Unless, Tom," Sullivan says. His voice is calm, eerily calm. "When I tell you, I need you to hit the bomb bay door release." McKinley stares at him. "The Bulldozer will fall into the ocean, along with our only chance of making that island useful. Then what? Just trust me." The third Zero is lining up its run, coming in from dead astern, where a tail gunner would normally sit, where there's nothing now but empty space and a clear shot at the cockpit. Sullivan watches it in the mirror, waiting, counting the distance. 600 yards. The Zero's guns start flashing. 400 yards. Sullivan's hand hovers over the bomb bay release. Now, McKinley slaps the lever. The bomb bay doors snap open. The Bulldozer, 4 tons of shifting, unsecured steel, slides backward on its broken restraints. For one impossible moment, it hangs there in the opening, suspended by a single chain. Then the chain breaks. The Bulldozer drops, and the B-17, suddenly 4 tons lighter, leaps upward like a cork released underwater. The Zero, committed to its firing run, has no time to react. The Bulldozer passes less than 50 feet beneath its belly, a massive steel projectile falling at terminal velocity. The Japanese pilot yanks his stick, brakes hard left, overcorrects. His wingman is directly in his flight path. The collision is almost gentle, wingtip to wingtip. A kiss of metal at 280 knots. Both Zeros cartwheel into the ocean. The remaining 2 fighters break off immediately. They climb, circle once, and then they're gone. Racing back toward their carrier, their fuel running low. Their appetite for this particular bomber suddenly vanished. Sullivan and McKinley sit in silence. The B-17 flies on, lighter now, bleeding fuel from a dozen holes, her right engine coughing smoke. Funafuti is still 850 miles away, and the Bulldozer, the entire reason for this mission, is at the bottom of the Pacific. March 18th. 1943, Funafuti Atoll, 0620 hours. The sun is barely up when the Marines on the beach hear it. A sound that doesn't belong. The deep, irregular throb of aircraft engines, but wrong somehow. Labored, struggling. They scan the horizon, hands shielding their eyes against the glare, and there it is. A B-17, coming in low over the water, trailing smoke from her right inboard engine, flying with a visible list to starboard. She's not circling, not signaling, just coming straight in toward the unfinished coral strip like a wounded bird with nowhere else to go. Lieutenant Marcus Webb, the senior Seabee on the island, grabs his binoculars. What the hell is he doing? That runway's only half finished. The coral's not even compacted yet. The B-17 drops lower. You can see the damage now. Puncture holes across the wings and fuselage, panels missing from the tail section. The bomb bay doors partially open and twisted. Black smoke pours from engine number 3. The propeller is windmilling uselessly. Inside the cockpit, Sullivan's world has narrowed to numbers and prayer. Airspeed 140 knots. Too fast. Altitude 200 feet. Too high. Distance to runway, half a mile. Fuel. Fumes. Engine 3 finally seizes with a metallic shriek that shudders through the entire airframe. The propeller locks in place. Sullivan feathers it, but the drag pulls them harder to starboard. He compensates with rudder, but his right leg is shaking from the effort. They've been flying for 19 hours. His hands are numb. His vision keeps tunneling at the edges. Gear up or down? McKinley's voice is hoarse. Sullivan looks at the coral strip rushing toward them. It's maybe 1,200 feet long. Barely half what a B-17 needs under normal circumstances. Loose coral, ungraded, with construction equipment scattered on one side and supply tents on the other. Gear up, we're going in on her belly. The impact is going to be hard. Brace. Below them, Webb is screaming at his men. Clear the strip! Clear the goddamn strip! Seabees scramble, dragging tools and materials out of the way. Some of them just run. The bomber is committed now, sinking toward the island like a stone. Sullivan cuts engines 1 and 2. Silence, except for the wind screaming past the damaged fuselage and the high-pitched whistle of hydraulic fluid spraying from a severed line. Engine 4, the only one still producing power. He keeps it idle, just enough to control the descent. 100 feet. The ocean flashes beneath them, turquoise water over coral heads, 50 feet. The beach, white sand, palm trees bent from yesterday's storm, 25 feet. The edge of the runway. Sullivan pulls back on the yoke, flaring the nose up, killing the last of their airspeed. The B-17 hangs there for one impossible moment, suspended between flight and catastrophe. Then she drops. The belly hits first. Metal meets coral with a sound like artillery fire. A screeching, tearing roar as aluminum skin shreds against jagged rock. The bomber skips once, slams down again, and begins to slide. A wave of pulverized coral explodes outward. The tail section yaws left. The right wing digs in, and for a horrifying second it looks like she's going to cartwheel, to tumble end over end in a ball of aviation fuel and sparks. But the wing holds. The B-17 grinds forward, plowing a trench through the unfinished runway, shedding pieces of herself. An access panel here, a fuel cap there, the entire ventral radio compartment torn away in one piece. She slides 400 feet, 500, 600, and stops, 70 feet from the supply tents. Sullivan sits motionless in his seat. His hands are still on the yoke. His feet are still on the rudder pedals, but the engines are silent. The propellers are still. They're down. They're alive. McKinley starts laughing. It's the sound of a man who's used up every drop of adrenaline and sanity and is running on something beyond fear. We made it. Jesus Christ. We actually made it. Sullivan unbuckles his harness with shaking hands. Let's see if it was worth it. They climb out through the cockpit window. The fuselage doors jam shut and drop to the coral. Marines are already running toward them. Webb arrives first, his face a mixture of disbelief and rage. What the hell were you thinking? You could have killed half my... He stops, because Sullivan is walking toward the bomber's belly, toward the twisted bomb bay doors, and he's pulling at the damaged metal with his bare hands. McKinley joins him. Together they wrench one door open far enough to see inside. The bomb bay is a chaos of broken straps and bent metal, but they're wedged against the forward bulkhead secured by chains that somehow held through 19 hours of flight and a belly landing that should have torn everything loose. Is a Caterpillar D4 bulldozer. Dented, scraped, one hydraulic line severed and leaking fluid, but intact. Webb stares. You flew a bulldozer here? We were supposed to drop it by parachute, Sullivan says. His voice is flat, exhausted. But the zeros shot up our release mechanism, so we had to bring it down the hard way. It takes 6 hours to extract the bulldozer from the wrecked B-17. They use jacks, pulleys, and 50 men straining against chains. When it finally rolls free onto the coral, Webb's crew swarms over it. They reconnect the hydraulic line with a spare hose. They drain contaminated fuel from the tank and replace it. They check the blade mechanism, the transmission, the engine mounts. At 1,415 hours, the D4's engine coughs to life. By sunset, it has moved more coral than Webb's entire crew could have moved in a week. Within 10 days, the runway is operational. C-47s start landing with supplies. P-39 fighters arrive for defense. Funafuti becomes a forward base for bombing raids on Japanese positions 800 miles north. And on the side of the wrecked B-17, still sitting where she died at the end of the runway, too damaged to repair, slowly being cannibalized for parts. Someone is painted in white letters. Special delivery. Below it, in smaller script, one bulldozer, slightly used. 3 months later, the mission is repeated on 7 other Pacific islands. Modified B-17s and B-24s, stripped down and loaded with construction equipment, making one-way trips to specks of coral that maps barely acknowledge. Some make it, some don't. But every bulldozer that arrives, every grader, every cement mixer, every piece of heavy equipment flown across impossible distances pushes the American advance a little further west, toward Japan. And it all started with one captain who looked at a bomber and a bulldozer and decided the word impossible was just a suggestion. If you like, hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching.